He fired me on a Zoom call with my whole team watching. No warning, no explanation, just a cold, calculated humiliation. What he didn't know was that I built the very system that would destroy their reputation from the inside out. And when I flipped the switch, everything they'd hidden came crashing into the light. My name is Rachel Kim. I'm 41 years old, and until about 6 months ago, I was the lead data strategist at a mid-sized tech firm called Stratacore. I've worked in data and analytics for close to 2 decades now, and for most of that time, I kept my head down, worked hard, mentored junior staff, and quietly built the systems that companies depend on but rarely understand. I don't chase the spotlight. I've never needed public recognition or flashy titles. What I care about is making sure things work efficiently, ethically, and transparently. So when I joined Stratacore nearly 8 years ago, I wasn't looking for clout. I just wanted a place where my skills would matter and where I could contribute to something meaningful. For a while, it felt like I had found that. But as I learned the hard way, loyalty in corporate America doesn't always go both ways. I still remember the exact morning I got fired, and not because it was dramatic, not in the way people think. There was no screaming, no accusations, no slamming laptops. It was quiet. Too quiet. It started with a sudden calendar invite that hit my inbox around 8:15 a.m. It was titled Urgent Team Sync, Staffing Alignment. That was the first red flag. It came from Cameron Lowe, our Senior Vice President of People and Culture, who almost never initiated meetings himself. The invite included 14 people, my direct reports, a couple of stakeholders from engineering and product, and 2 other people I hadn't worked with in months. The whole setup felt strange, but in this industry, you learn to read between the lines. I knew something was off the second I saw who was on that call. When the Zoom started, everyone's faces popped up like little floating heads, all of them smiling awkwardly, clearly unsure of what the meeting was really about. I kept my camera off. That wasn't unusual for me. I never liked being on camera unless I had to be. Cameron's camera was on, and he was already smiling in that too smooth, too polished way HR people do when they're about to tell you something terrible while pretending it's totally routine. He started with a vague statement about organizational restructuring and alignment around strategic goals. And by the 3rd sentence, I knew this wasn't a team update. This was about me. Then came the line I'll never forget. Rachel, as part of this restructuring, we've made the difficult decision to eliminate your position, effective immediately. He said it like he was reading from a cue card. No emotion, no acknowledgement of my years with the company. I was stunned, not because I didn't see it coming, but because of how cold and rehearsed it sounded. 14 people were on that call, watching this unfold like it was some bizarre performance. One of my junior analysts, Eli Ward, looked absolutely mortified. Another tried to mute herself quickly, probably to hide her gasp. Cameron kept talking, rambling about severance details, HR follow-ups, and how this wasn't a reflection of my contributions. And then, just to twist the knife a little deeper, he threw in this line. We appreciate your work, but your role is easily replicable given our current tools. Easily replicable. After almost a decade of building their data pipelines from the ground up, writing the documentation no one else had time to write, automating their monthly reporting, and mentoring most of the team, he had the nerve to say I was easily replaced. It took everything in me not to unmute and respond, but I didn't. I just listened. Silently. I sat there, camera off, mic off, watching the awkward silence on the screen stretch out. Someone tried to type something in the chat, a useless, "I'm so sorry," that disappeared as quickly as it came. Cameron wrapped up with a polite, "Thank you, Rachel, and we wish you the best." And just like that, the meeting ended. No applause, no goodbyes, no acknowledgement. I closed my laptop slowly, my hands shaking not with sadness, but with the kind of restrained fury that only builds when you realize you were never as valued as you thought. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stood up, packed my essentials, cleared my desktop, and walked out of the office like a ghost. People always ask how it feels to get fired in front of your coworkers. I tell them it's like being erased in real time. It's not the termination itself, it's the public spectacle, the way your name becomes a footnote in a corporate PowerPoint deck titled Headcount Optimization. That kind of dismissal does something to your sense of self. It shakes the foundation. But here's the part that Cameron didn't know, and neither did the rest of the exec team. I wasn't just any employee. Quiet as I may have been, I'd been building something outside Stratacore for over 2 years. A passion project. Something with teeth. The irony is that the very reason they underestimated me, the fact that I never made noise, never played politics, never went to drinks with the leadership team, was exactly why I'd been able to build that project without anyone at Stratacore catching on. They never saw me as a threat because I never demanded power. But what they didn't realize is that power doesn't always come with a title. Sometimes it comes in the form of information. Sometimes it comes from watching quietly, learning patterns, and knowing exactly where the pressure points are. And in the world of corporate hiring and pay equity, those pressure points are everywhere. Before Stratacore, I'd worked at 3 different tech companies, and the same problem followed me every time: pay secrecy. People doing the same work with wildly different compensation, vague promotion ladders, and bonuses that made no sense. It bothered me. So a few years ago, I started building a platform part spreadsheet, part survey tool, part anonymous form where people could anonymously report their salary, role, years of experience, and company. I called it Clear Scale. It started with just a few dozen entries from friends and former colleagues. But over time, it grew. Organically, quietly, powerfully. By the time I was fired from Stratacore, ClearScale had over 42,000 salary entries across more than 300 tech companies. The data wasn't just numbers, it told stories. You could see patterns of bias, arbitrary compensation jumps, and companies with clearly broken pay structures. And the best part? Every entry was verified through encrypted email confirmation and metadata cross-checks. It wasn't perfect, but it was damn close. And unlike the big salary sites out there, I kept everything anonymous and unmonetized. No ads, no selling user data, just transparency. So when I was fired publicly, unfairly, and with the full weight of corporate indifference, I didn't need to retaliate with noise. I just logged into the admin dashboard of ClearScale and quietly removed Stratacore from public visibility. That meant no one, no candidate, no recruiter, no external partner could view Stratacore's salary data, equity reviews, or internal culture scores. To the outside world, it looked like Stratacore had something to hide, because now they did. Cameron and his team had no idea the ripple effect that was about to unfold. I didn't do it out of spite. I did it because people deserve to know what kind of company they're walking into, and if Stratacore didn't want to value transparency, then they didn't deserve the benefits that came from being listed on ClearScale. Almost immediately, I started getting pings on LinkedIn recruiters asking if I knew why Stratacore's data had disappeared. One of them said a candidate backed out mid-process, citing lack of visibility. Another asked if it was a bug. I didn't respond. I let the silence speak for itself. Within a week, the online chatter started. Reddit threads popped up questioning why Stratacore suddenly vanished from multiple salary transparency tools. Twitter, well, I guess we're calling it X, now had a few viral posts speculating on a cover-up. Stratacore's recruiting team tried to spin it as a platform transition, but no one was buying it. Because in the age of transparency, the absence of information speaks louder than any carefully worded PR statement. People think revenge is loud, that it comes with fire and fury. But sometimes, revenge is just the quiet removal of access. Sometimes, It's knowing exactly what to take away to make a company feel the absence they once overlooked. And in the case of Stratacore, what I took wasn't a file or a document. It was their reputation, their perceived openness, their ability to attract top talent with confidence. All I had to do was click one button. What they failed to realize was that I wasn't angry. I was focused. I wasn't shouting. I was executing. And I wasn't planning to go back. I was planning to move forward on my own terms. With ClearScale growing faster than ever and a wave of new contributors joining every week, I knew I was onto something much bigger than any single job. And Cameron? He'd just given me the perfect story to build a movement around. The funny thing about side projects is that the people around you rarely ask about them until they go viral or make someone uncomfortable. ClearScale started in the quietest way possible, just a few spreadsheets and a half-baked form I coded over a rainy weekend back in late 2020. I wasn't trying to launch a startup or build some grand platform to disrupt the industry. Honestly, I just got tired of watching talented people get paid wildly different salaries for doing the same exact work, especially in tech, where the rules of equity and compensation often seem like they're made up on the fly. So I created a place where people could submit their pay info anonymously, securely, and without all the gamification nonsense you find on those bigger salary websites. I built it for us engineers, analysts, product folks, marketers, anyone who felt like they were operating in the dark when it came to what they were worth. ClearScale stayed small for a long time. I shared it with close friends and a few trusted Slack communities. At first, it was just 20 or 30 entries. A few Amazon and Google folks added their numbers. Someone at a mid-sized fintech in Boston submitted a full breakdown of their total comp, including RSUs. I kept improving the form, tightening the logic, and verifying entries through soft email checks. No names, no IP addresses, no tracking, just clean data. When I started getting 500 entries a month, I knew I had something that people actually wanted. And when the monthly reports started getting passed around in private channels at Stratacore and other companies, I realized ClearScale wasn't just a tool, it was a mirror. And people were scared of what it might reflect. I never told anyone at Stratacore that I built it. Why would I? The company talked a big game about transparency, but every time someone brought up pay equity or leveling frameworks, leadership would dodge the question or slap together some vague matrix document that said nothing. Cameron, our senior vice president of people and culture, once told us in a company-wide Q&A that market-driven compensation means flexibility, not uniformity. I remember that because it was the moment I realized they had no intention of fixing the gaps. They liked the gaps. The gaps gave them control. And that's when I stopped thinking of ClearScale as just a side project. It became my quiet rebellion, my way of leveling the field without ever stepping into a spotlight. After I was fired, I didn't react right away. I gave myself a few days to process it, to feel everything that needed to be felt. The humiliation, the betrayal, the deep sense of erasure. I walked around my neighborhood for hours. I cleaned out my fridge. I ignored texts from well-meaning coworkers who didn't know what to say. But by the end of the week, I was ready. Not for revenge, not exactly. It was something more focused than that. I logged into the ClearScale admin dashboard, found Stratacore's internal tag, and toggled it off. In that single action, I scrubbed them from all public-facing reports. Their data was still stored securely in the back end, but to the outside world, candidates, recruiters, researchers, it was like Stratacore had vanished. No compensation records, no culture reviews, no equity breakdowns, just a blank space where transparency used to be. People assume I did it out of spite, but it wasn't that simple. It was about alignment. Stratacore didn't believe in transparency. They didn't believe in paying people fairly. They didn't believe in accountability. So why should they benefit from a platform designed to shine light on all of those things? Removing their visibility was a statement, a quiet, firm, strategic one. And the impact was almost immediate. I didn't need to blast it on Twitter or send a press release. All I had to do was create a vacuum and let the silence do its work. Within 3 days, I noticed the first LinkedIn message from a recruiter I'd never spoken to. She asked if I knew why Stratacor's salary data had disappeared from ClearScale. I didn't respond. Then came a message from a candidate I'd coached a few months earlier. She said she'd been deep into final interviews with Stratacor, but pulled out last minute when she couldn't find any recent compensation insights. "If they're hiding something, I don't want to find out the hard way," she wrote. That's when I knew the silence was starting to rattle people. Not just because the data was gone, but because of what that absence implied. Over the next week, more messages trickled in. 2 from former Stratacor employees asking if the platform was down. 1 from an anonymous email account that said, "I think I know what you did, and I respect it. But I still didn't say a word. I didn't need to." The community that used ClearScale was already connecting the dots. People started posting on Reddit in subreddits like RCSCARERQUESTIONS and RWORKREFORM, asking why Stratacor's listings were gone. Some speculated it was a glitch. Others guessed legal pressure. But the prevailing theory that Stratacor had been removed for failing to meet transparency standards quickly gained traction. What most people didn't realize is that ClearScale wasn't just a website. It was a conversation engine. Every time someone viewed a company's profile, they had the option to upvote helpful comments, add their own experience, or flag inconsistencies. The community policed itself better than any content team could. So when Stratacor disappeared, it didn't just affect the visibility of their salary data, it broke the chain of trust that hiring managers, candidates, and recruiters had relied on. Suddenly, Stratacor became that company in every job-seeking Discord and Telegram channel. The one that used to be transparent. The one that went dark. Internally, I imagine panic started to build. Jenna Patel, one of Stratacor's senior recruiters, reached out to me through a personal email with the subject line, "Quick question off the record?" I didn't reply. Her message was polite but desperate. She asked if there had been a change in policy with the salary tool, because we're seeing unusual candidate drop-offs. She even offered to connect me with someone on the employer brand team to talk about partnership opportunities. That part made me laugh. I was their former employee, discarded in front of my peers without a second thought, and now they wanted to partner. I think what shook them most was that they couldn't control the narrative. They couldn't point to a single tweet or blog post and say, "This is why we're being attacked." There was no attack, just absence, just a quiet, sudden gap in the data flow that made people ask questions. And the more they asked, the more Stratacor's silence looked like guilt. Cameron, from what I heard, tried to downplay the issue during a quarterly sync by calling it a third-party technical glitch. But even that backfired. Because if it was a glitch, why wasn't it affecting other companies? Why were only Stratacor's records missing? Transparency is like oxygen in the tech hiring world. When it's there, no one thinks much of it. But take it away, and suddenly everyone's gasping. Stratacor found that out the hard way. I didn't take away their credibility. I just removed the borrowed credibility ClearScale had been lending them. And without that foundation, all the cracks started to show. Candidates began sharing emails where recruiters danced around questions about compensation bands. Interviewers contradicted each other on stock option policies. Someone even posted screenshots of their offer letter on Twitter, pointing out vague equity language that felt sketchy. I stayed out of it. I didn't comment. I didn't defend or deny. I just watched it unfold, calmly, knowing that what I had built was doing exactly what it was designed to do, shine a light on the companies that respected fairness, and quietly withdraw that light from the ones that didn't. Stratacor had built their talent pipeline partly on ClearScale's reputation, whether they realized it or not. Now that the plug was pulled, They had to rely on their own reputation. And without the mask, it didn't look so good. What I've learned through all this is that silence can be louder than outrage if you aim it carefully. I didn't need to yell or sue or trash them in public. I didn't need a lawyer or a social media campaign. All I needed was the truth and a quiet mechanism to let that truth reveal itself over time. That's what ClearScale had become. And with Stratacore gone from the listings, it was finally clear to the industry who walked the talk and who didn't. It started with a single text from Jenna. She'd looped me in on hiring dashboards 100 times back when I was still at Stratacore, usually on those late nights we spent trying to fix broken application funnels or predict offer acceptance rates. But this text wasn't about tweaking metrics or optimizing stages. It was pure panic. "Applicants are bailing mid-process," she wrote. "Recruiters are freaking out." I stared at the message for a while, not sure whether to laugh or feel vindicated. After all, it was only a matter of time. Stratacore had built an entire hiring machine on a foundation of curated branding, vague values, and piped-in trust. But now the trust had dried up and they had nothing to fall back on. I didn't respond to Jenna. I couldn't. Not just because of what they did to me, but because I knew what was coming next. And I didn't want to be part of their damage control scramble. I'd already done my part, removed the company from ClearScale, allowed their absence to speak louder than any takedown post ever could. I didn't need to explain it to Jenna. She already knew, deep down. So I left the message on read and turned off notifications. Meanwhile, Reddit lit up like a bonfire. Someone posted a thread titled, "Why did Stratacore disappear from ClearScale?" with screenshots of their missing data, plus a few DMs from recruiters who gave vague responses when asked about compensation and bans. The replies were brutal. "Sketchy AF," someone wrote, "probably hiding something." Another user chimed in with, "I interviewed there last year. Dodged a bullet." Then a few former employees joined in, anonymously of course, and began confirming what the community already suspected, that Stratacore leadership had always been resistant to sharing pay data, that Cameron spun every tough question into a fluff answer, that equity packages were inconsistent depending on who negotiated hardest. And just like that, the illusion started to crack. Internally, Cameron did what leaders like him always do in a crisis. He lied to buy time. He called it a tech outage, said ClearScale's API was broken and that they were working with the platform to resolve the issue. I almost choked on my coffee when I read that part in an internal memo that a friend quietly forwarded to me. There was no API integration. There never had been. Stratacore never paid for any premium data access. Everything they got was free and public until I decided it shouldn't be. And now, with that window closed, they were trying to cover their tracks with half-truths and invented bugs. LinkedIn wasn't far behind Reddit. My inbox filled with posts from second-degree connections speculating about Stratacore's sudden drop-off in visibility. Someone from a rival firm posted a comparison chart showing how Stratacore used to have one of the most active profiles on ClearScale, and now they were gone. Just a gray box with no data. It wasn't an expose. It was just a visual reminder that something had shifted, and sometimes that's all people need to start asking the right questions. That's when things really started to spiral for them. Jenna texted again 2 days later. "They're asking if you're behind it. No one's saying your name directly, but it's implied." I didn't answer that one either. Let them guess. Let them wonder if the woman they humiliated in front of 14 witnesses might have had the last word after all. Meanwhile, their pipeline slowed to a crawl. Recruiters started missing their monthly targets. Candidates went cold after the second interview. Offers hung in limbo. And the ones who did accept began posting on anonymous channels saying things didn't feel right, that their onboarding felt disorganized, that no one could give a straight answer about salary reviews or growth tracks. It wasn't just the data that was gone, the trust was gone too. I heard from Liam next. He was a senior product manager who left Stratacore 6 months before I did. Smart, principled guy. We'd shared more than a few late nights arguing about ethics and compensation modeling. He messaged me on Signal, which was rare. "I know you'd never admit it," he wrote, "but if you had anything to do with the blackout, just know some of us are cheering." That made me pause. Not out of guilt, but out of clarity. What I'd done wasn't sabotage, it was subtraction. I'd simply taken away the benefit they never earned in the first place. They used ClearScale to create the appearance of fairness, without ever doing the hard work of actually being fair. So I stopped lending them that credibility. Cameron, of course, tried to regain control. He sent a company-wide email claiming bad actors were spreading misinformation and that the leadership team was actively working to restore external partnerships. Classic damage control, but it didn't stop the leaks. Someone shared a screenshot of the email on Blind, followed by a thread of employees dragging Stratacore for dodging real transparency. Then, a former engineering manager posted a spreadsheet showing how his female reports made 15% less than their male counterparts at the same level. The post got over 10,000 views in a day. Comments exploded. This is exactly why ClearScale mattered. Companies like Stratacore are why we don't trust HR. Expose them all. By that weekend, things inside the company were hitting a boiling point. My friend Maya, who still worked in data engineering, told me Slack channels were filled with passive-aggressive comments and side-eye emojis any time someone mentioned recruiting. One recruiter supposedly cried during a team call after getting chewed out by a hiring manager. But what really set the wheels in motion was the resignation of Denise, a senior UX lead, who had always been the definition of composed. Denise didn't just quit. She dropped a message in the general Slack channel before leaving. It read, "If leadership won't be transparent, I can't lead here in good conscience." 10 words, 1 exit, a dozen ripple effects. After that, the mask started slipping fast. I watched as Stratacore's Glassdoor rating dipped from 4.3 to 3.7 in under 10 days. Someone even created a parody Twitter account that reposted old Stratacore value statements with sarcastic commentary. "We value trust unless you ask for your pay band. We empower growth unless your growth threatens the old guard." I didn't create that account, but I'd be lying if I said it didn't make me smile. The court of public opinion was now in session, and there wasn't a comms team in the world that could stop it. The thing about Cameron was that he genuinely believed he could outmaneuver bad press with vague language and a confident tone. That might have worked 10 years ago, maybe even 5, but not now. Not when employees screenshot every email, not when candidates compare notes in private chats, not when people can sense when something's off, especially when something used to be visible, and then, suddenly, isn't. Stratacore tried to plug holes with buzzwords and talking points, but the ship was already taking on water. Because no matter how pretty you paint a facade, if the foundation is cracked, the truth will find a way through. And I was watching it all from a distance. Not gleefully, not bitterly, just watching. Like someone who'd handed over the final puzzle piece and quietly stepped back to let the picture come into focus. ClearScale was still running, still growing, still collecting data from other companies that actually wanted to do better. I'd received dozens of inquiries from teams asking how they could opt in. Not opt out. Opt in. That was the shift. People were tired of the silence. They wanted to be seen, and they wanted to work for companies that weren't afraid of being seen too. Stratacore, meanwhile, had become a cautionary tale. Their disappearance from ClearScale didn't just make them invisible, it made them suspicious. Because in today's hiring landscape, lack of information isn't just inconvenient, it's a red flag. Candidates don't want mystery, they want clarity, and no amount of glossy careers pages or branded Instagram posts can make up for the absence of truth. That's what they never understood. That's what they never prepared for. And now, the cracks were too wide to patch. I never planned to keep the receipts. At first, I told myself it was just habit backing up project notes, saving internal documents for continuity, keeping my own copies of performance reviews and comp summaries. But after my firing, those files became something else entirely. They were truth. They were protection. And eventually, they became leverage. Stratacore had always banked on the fact that people left quietly, that no one would ever line up the inconsistencies or challenge the polished version of equity they performed for the outside world. But I had the files, and I was done being quiet. There were 3 main folders. One contained screenshots of pay bands broken down by role, where discrepancies of 10 to 15% showed up clearly depending on race or gender. The second had promotion data who got bumped up, when and how quickly. The patterns were obvious once you laid them out. Women in engineering waited longer for promotions. People of color had flatter growth curves, and referrals from leadership's personal networks advanced faster than internal applicants. And the third? It had a scanned PDF of an offer letter. A mid-level back-end developer offered $22,000, more than her peer in the same role, same experience, but a different background. I knew that peer. She'd cried in the break room after her promotion meeting. I kept that letter because her voice deserved to be heard, even if she couldn't speak up herself. I didn't want a viral moment. I wanted a record. So I reached out to someone I trusted, Layla Spence, a reporter who'd covered tech workplace inequity for years and never sensationalized. She had a reputation for handling sources with care, and she didn't scare easy. I created a fresh Proton mail, encrypted everything twice, and sent her a message. I have internal documentation showing pay inequity at a major tech company, willing to provide anonymously. She replied within the hour. Yes, send what you're comfortable sharing. That was it. No pressure, no questions, just a green light. Within days, the article went live. It was titled, "Stratacore's Equity Problem Isn't a Bug, It's a Feature." Layla didn't name me. She didn't need to. The evidence did the talking. She included redacted charts from the payband files, a side-by-side timeline of promotion inconsistencies, and a quote from one employee that hit like a hammer. They preach transparency, but only when it flatters them. The piece exploded. LinkedIn, Twitter, Reddit, everywhere I looked, someone was sharing it. Screenshots, quotes, commentary. It wasn't just going viral, it was hitting a nerve. Inside Stratacore, the reaction was immediate. I didn't need access to their Slack anymore to know what was happening. I could see it in the faces of the people posting vague messages, in the recruiter who wrote, "Feeling exhausted by leadership's silence today," in the junior dev who posted an article link with the caption, "If you know, you know." Then came the moment no one could spin. A live resignation during an all-hands meeting. I got the play-by-play from Maya. She messaged me, still breathless. Devon team lead in data science just quit, on camera, said he refuses to lead under performative equity, called out Cameron by name, then left the Zoom. My heart raced. Devon had always been measured, calm, deeply respected. If he walked out publicly, others would follow, and they did. Over the next 72 hours, 5 more employees resigned, 3 of them senior, all of them vocal. One of them, a project manager named Elise, left a final Slack post that read, "Equity without accountability is just marketing. I won't be part of a brand campaign." I screenshotted it, not to share, but to keep. It reminded me of the strength people find when the illusion finally breaks. Stratacore wasn't facing a PR problem. It was facing a reckoning. Cameron tried to hold the line. He issued a bland internal statement about deep reflection and recommitting to inclusive leadership. No admission of fault. No action. Just paragraphs of polished nothing. Then he did something worse. He tried to paint the article as an attack from a disgruntled ex-employee. Anonymous sources, he said in a team leads meeting, should always be scrutinized. But he forgot something. The documents weren't anonymous. They were screenshots. PDFs, spreadsheets, hard proof. His words didn't land. They just bounced off the facts and fell flat. I watched it all unfold with a strange mix of sadness and satisfaction. Sadness because this didn't have to happen, because people like Jenna and Maya and Devin deserved better. Satisfaction because this time they weren't being gaslit or shut down. The facts were out there. The receipts had done their job. And now the story was bigger than me. Employees started sharing their own evidence emails, performance metrics, comp reviews. One junior designer posted about getting promised a promotion that was re-evaluated 3 times despite exceeding expectations. Another mentioned how she found out her coworker made $18,000 more because he accidentally forwarded his pay stub. There was no controlling the flow now. The dam had burst, and not even Cameron's carefully worded HR memos could patch it. That week, a senior advisor quietly stepped down. A board member posted a LinkedIn essay about listening more and defending less. Stratacor's recruiting numbers hit a new low. Job offers were declined without explanation. Even partnerships started pulling back. One fintech firm paused a collaboration, pending internal review of public reporting. The silence around Stratacor had turned into a loud void. Not just absence, but avoidance. No one wanted to be associated with a company caught hiding behind half-truths. For me, it was never about revenge in the way people think. I didn't want to see anyone ruined. I just wanted the lies to stop. I wanted the truth to matter again. And the truth was clear. Stratacor didn't get caught because they made one mistake. They got caught because they believed no one would ever challenge their version of the story. They fired me thinking I was disposable, but I'd built something stronger than a platform. I'd built a ledger of accountability, and now it had teeth. Layla reached out again, this time for a follow-up. People want to know who started ClearScale, she wrote. You'd have support if you went public. Think about it. I didn't respond right away. I sat with it. I weighed the risk of being seen against the power of being heard. I thought about the emails, the leaked documents, the voices that had joined mine. This wasn't just a one-person mission anymore. This was a movement. Transparency wasn't a threat now. It was the standard. And people were demanding it, like never before. By Friday, Stratacor Leaks was trending. Not because of me, but because people were tired. Tired of empty slogans. Tired of fake accountability. Tired of getting talked over by leadership that only listened when it was convenient. Employees at other companies began asking questions too. What's our pay band policy? Do we benchmark comp fairly? Can we see our promotion data? HR teams everywhere were feeling the ripple effect. That's when I knew it was bigger than anything I could have imagined. ClearScale wasn't just a website anymore. It was a signal, a line in the sand. When I finally did reply to Layla, it was short. Soon, I wrote. I didn't need a dramatic reveal. I just needed the truth to keep moving. And it was, like wildfire. I haven't accepted yet. Part of me is still catching up with the reality of it all. But every time I reread Grant's message, I feel that knot in my chest loosening just a little. For so long, I worked in silence, built in silence, fought to prove I belonged, only to be told on Zoom in front of my team that I was replaceable, that my skills were a dime a dozen. Now, companies are quoting my words back to me in policy drafts. People are using ClearScale's data to renegotiate salaries. Leaders are asking me how to repair what they let break. I didn't expect any of this, but I did earn it. I walk different now. not out of arrogance, but peace. I'm not chasing credibility anymore. I am the credibility. I see it in the way people speak to me now. Not over me, not around me. To me. I've had engineers ask for advice on launching their own platforms. I've had mid-level managers send me drafts of new transparency policies and ask for feedback. I even got a DM from a recruiter at Stratacore who said, "I've left and I want to help." That one stuck with me, not because it was satisfying, but because it proved something. People want to do better. They just need someone to go first. ClearScale is growing faster than I expected. We added benchmarking tools. We partnered with 2 other orgs to help standardize DEI metrics across sectors. We're even building a forum where employees can anonymously crowdsource comp data by region and role. But I still log in quietly from the same desk with the same coffee mug, wearing the same hoodie I wore the day I got fired. That moment doesn't define me anymore, but I don't forget it either. It's not a scar, it's a marker. A line between the version of me that stayed silent and the version that finally said, "Enough." Looking back, the irony isn't lost on me. They fired me thinking it would make a point. And it did, but not the one they intended. Their attempt to erase me only amplified my voice. Their need to control the narrative only inspired a better one. And their decision to discard me was the very thing that helped me build something that now makes them irrelevant in the spaces that matter. I didn't set out to blacklist a company. I set out to make silence less survivable for companies who hurt people quietly, and I did that. The next chapter is still unwritten. Maybe I'll take the consulting offer. Maybe I'll grow ClearScale full-time. Maybe I'll mentor others who want to do the same thing in their industries. But for the first time in years, I feel like the story is mine to write. Not dictated, not edited, just mine. I'm not hiding behind a platform anymore. I am the platform, and this time they know my name.